You can't change a person by force, but you can influence their transformation by the energy you bring to the relationship. Too many people think love is about chasing, fixing, or convincing someone to stay. But that's not love. That's fear wearing a mask. If you truly want to move an avoidant person from running to staying, from hiding to committing, then you've got to stop operating from desperation and start operating from power. People with avoidant tendencies aren't broken. They're scared. They were taught somewhere along the way that love equals danger, that vulnerability equals pain. And what they need is not more pressure, they need safety. But safety doesn't come from begging, controlling, or overgiving. It comes from presence. It comes from you standing so grounded in your truth that your energy communicates. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm not shrinking either. You see, when you try to force an avoidant to commit, they'll resist you. But when you shift your energy, when you stop reacting and start responding with clarity and confidence, something powerful happens. They begin to feel the difference. You stop being another demand on their soul and start being a reflection of peace. You stop becoming their trigger and start becoming their mirror. And that mirror shows them what they've been missing, strength wrapped in love. If you want an avoidant to change, you have to lead with emotional intelligence. Don't match their silence with panic. Don't meet their distance with pursuit. Meet it with grounded certainty. Stand tall. Look them in the eye and communicate without words. You can run, but love isn't chasing anymore. Love is waiting at the level of truth. That's power. That's influence. That's where transformation begins. Let me tell you something, boundaries are not punishments. They are invitations. When you say, this is what I will accept and this is what I won't, you are not rejecting them. You are giving them a roadmap for connection. You're saying, if you want access to my heart, here's the level of respect required. And when you hold that line with consistency and love, they start to see that your boundaries aren't barriers. They are bridges to a deeper connection. The truth is, most avoidants aren't afraid of love. They're afraid of losing control. So how do you reach them? Speak to their needs. They want to feel free. So show them that commitment doesn't mean prison. It means partnership. They want to feel significant. So show them that their presence matters. When you meet both needs, freedom and importance, you bypass their fear and awaken their desire to stay. But here's the ultimate secret: you lead the dance. Your emotional energy sets the tone. If you are grounded, calm, and focused on growth, the avoidant feels your stability. They can sense when your love comes from abundance rather than attachment. When your energy says, I am complete, and I choose you, not because I need you, but because I value connection, that energy becomes irresistible. You stop trying to pull them, and instead your energy pulls them naturally towards you. You want them to commit? Then embody commitment yourself. Be committed to your healing. Be committed to your peace. Be committed to the vision of love that is strong, patient, and wise. Because when you rise to that level, they either rise with you or fall away. And if they fall away, you'll realize it wasn't rejection. It was redirection toward a love that can meet you at your level. The greatest transformation happens when you stop trying to make someone change, and instead, you become the change that inspires them to evolve. When you love without attachment, when you give without losing yourself, when you walk in both softness and strength, you become the embodiment of emotional mastery. And people are drawn to mastery. Remember this, love is not about pulling someone into your world. It's about expanding your world so big that they feel safe enough to walk into it. When you stand in your divine power, your energy does what words cannot. You don't need to chase commitment. You attract it. You don't need to force change. You become the catalyst for it. So, if you truly want to awaken commitment in an avoidant, don't try to fix them. Heal yourself so deeply that your presence becomes their invitation to heal too. That's how change happens. That's how commitment begins. It starts with you, the one who chose power over fear, influence over control, and love over attachment. You can't force someone to change through pressure, persuasion, or manipulation, but you can influence their energy by transforming your own. The truth is, control never creates commitment. It only breeds resistance. Influence, on the other hand, is born from power, not external power, but the kind that comes from emotional certainty, from knowing who you are and standing rooted in that truth. When you're dealing with an avoidant person, the moment you try to control their actions, emotions, or timing, they will instinctively pull away. It's not because they don't care. It's because control threatens their sense of safety. But when you shift from trying to control to choosing to influence, when you lead with energy, not pressure, everything changes. Influence begins with presence. Your presence carries vibration. If your presence is anxious, fearful, and uncertain, you'll project that energy, and they will feel it as suffocation. But if your presence is grounded, peaceful, and self-assured, you become magnetic. The energy you bring either repels or invites. Influence is about learning how to regulate your own emotional state, because people don't respond to your words. They respond to your energy. You can tell someone, "I love you," but if your energy screams fear, control, or neediness, they won't feel love. They'll feel pressure. But if your energy says, "I'm safe, I'm whole, I'm not here to take from you," that energy opens their heart. To influence an avoidant, you must become the emotional leader in the dynamic. Leadership in relationships is not about dominance. It's about stability. It's about being the one who can hold emotional space without collapsing. When they pull away, you don't chase. When they go silent, you don't panic, you stay centered. You stay present, because your steadiness becomes the thing they start to trust. Avoidants are not inspired by intensity, they're moved by consistency. They follow energy that feels safe, predictable, and strong. You must show them that your love doesn't fluctuate with their moods or fears. When you embody this level of emotional certainty, your influence expands naturally. You become the calm in their storm, the balance they didn't know they needed. This is what transforms dynamics. Not force, not arguments, not demands, but energetic leadership. It's saying through your actions and your energy, "I honor your pace, but I also honor my worth." This balance of patience and self-respect becomes irresistible. It communicates maturity, confidence, and value. The truth is, influence is the art of inspiring change without needing to control it. It's the recognition that your greatest power doesn't come from what you do to others, but from who you become in their presence. When you show up with love that's unattached and strength that's unshakable, the avoidant begins to feel something new: safety and connection. And that safety is what allows them to slowly let their guard down, to stop running, and to finally step closer. That's how real change begins. Not by force, but by the silent power of your energy. Avoidants don't run from love itself, they run from the feeling of being unsafe in it. For them, closeness often feels like danger because somewhere in their past, vulnerability was tied to pain, disappointment, or loss of control. That's why pressure, no matter how well-intentioned, triggers their deepest fears. The more you demand connection, the more their walls rise. But when you create an environment of safety, emotional, mental, and spiritual safety, something begins to shift within them. They start to feel that closeness doesn't have to mean loss. They start to experience love as freedom, not confinement. Safety is not built through words, it's built through energy and consistency. It's the calm tone of your voice when they withdraw. It's the steadiness in your presence when they test the distance between you. It's the absence of judgment when they reveal their fears. It's the way you respond instead of react. Avoidants have spent their lives expecting that love will demand too much, that connection will drain them. But when they meet someone who embodies peace instead of panic, acceptance instead of control, their nervous system begins to relax. And that relaxation is what allows connection to grow. To create safety, you must let go of the idea that love has to be proven. You don't need to convince them to stay. You need to create an atmosphere where they want to stay. That atmosphere comes from emotional balance. When your sense of worth isn't dependent on their response, it comes from compassion. When you understand their silence as self-protection, not rejection. And it comes from patience. When you allow their pace without losing sight of your own boundaries. Safety is not about lowering your standards, it's about elevating your energy. It's about being firm yet gentle, strong yet understanding. When you build emotional safety, you help them experience something different: connection without chaos. You show them that being loved doesn't mean being controlled. You demonstrate that intimacy can coexist with independence. And in that realization, their defenses begin to soften. The more safe they feel, the more present they become. The more accepted they feel, the more willing they are to engage. It's a process, one that can't be rushed, but it can be nurtured through authenticity and care. Safety is not about making yourself smaller to avoid triggering them. It's about standing fully in your truth while radiating calm and compassion. It's about allowing space for their emotions without abandoning your own. That's how you build a connection that can withstand fear and uncertainty. When an avoidant finally feels emotionally safe, their instinct to run begins to fade. Because safety doesn't cage them, it liberates them. It allows them to feel seen without being smothered. And that's where commitment is born, not from force, but from the deep peace that says, "Here, you are free to be, and still you are loved." When you chase an avoidant, you feed their fear. The more you pursue, the more they retreat, not because they don't care, but because pursuit reminds them of pressure, of losing control, of being engulfed by someone else's emotions. This is why mirroring, not chasing, is the key. When you mirror, you shift the energy from desperation to dignity. You begin to reflect their pace, not react to it. You stop trying to pull them closer, and instead you become the kind of energy that draws them in naturally. Mirroring is not about manipulation, it's about alignment. It's about showing through your behavior that you can meet them in calmness, that you can love them without losing yourself. When they withdraw, don't panic, pause. When they go silent, don't fill the space with noise, breathe and allow the stillness. When they create distance, don't chase it, mirror it with quiet strength, because that calm response says something powerful. I am not a threat to your peace. Avoidants are used to being misunderstood. They expect people to react with frustration, anger, or emotional neediness. But when you respond with composure, when you mirror balance instead of anxiety, you interrupt their pattern. You show them a new way of relating, one that doesn't require running to feel safe. Mirroring is emotional intelligence in action. It means you're attuned to their needs without abandoning your own. You can hold empathy for their fears while maintaining clarity about your boundaries. You can offer understanding without overextending. That balance makes your presence magnetic. It communicates, I see you, but I'm not chasing you. I value connection, but I won't sacrifice my peace for it. That energy creates curiosity in the avoidant. It disarms their instinct to flee because suddenly they don't feel cornered. They feel respected. The beauty of mirroring is that it silently teaches. It models emotional regulation and maturity. Instead of demanding they change, you show them what secure connection looks like. When you stay calm in the face of distance, you demonstrate safety. When you stay consistent without pleading, you demonstrate reliability. And slowly, they begin to feel that being close to you doesn't require losing their autonomy. They start to trust the energy you bring, not through words, but through the vibration of emotional steadiness. Eventually, the avoidance walls begin to lower, not because you forced them down, but because your calm energy made those walls unnecessary. They start to approach not because you pulled them in, but because your presence feels like peace. And that's the paradox. The less you chase, the more they come closer. Mirroring is powerful because it allows love to breathe. It removes pressure, replaces fear with trust, and transforms the dynamic from resistance to resonance. When you mirror strength, confidence, and emotional security, you invite the avoidant to meet you at your level. Not out of fear, but out of choice. And that choice is what makes commitment real. Boundaries are not barriers meant to push people away. They are sacred lines that teach others how to value your presence. When you're dealing with an avoidant, boundaries are not about punishing them or controlling their behavior. They are about protecting your peace and setting the standard for how you deserve to be treated. Avoidants test boundaries not out of malice, but out of habit. They've learned to navigate relationships by maintaining emotional distance. Without clear boundaries, they unconsciously repeat patterns of avoidance and detachment. But when you establish firm, loving boundaries, you communicate something deeper. This is what respect looks like in my world. A boundary is a reflection of self-worth. It tells the avoidant that you are not afraid of their silence, that you won't chase inconsistency, and that your value doesn't depend on their validation. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they are acts of self-love. They remind both you and them that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not emotional chaos. The key is to hold those boundaries with grace, not anger. When you express them calmly and consistently, you create a sense of safety and structure, something the avoidant secretly craves but doesn't know how to ask for. Boundaries teach through behavior, not explanation. If you say you won't tolerate emotional withdrawal, but you continue to accept it without consequence, your words lose meaning. But when you act with integrity, when you lovingly step back or redirect your focus when boundaries are crossed, you create a pattern of accountability. You show that your love is strong but not blind, giving but not endless. Avoidants begin to respect people who respect themselves because that energy feels grounded, and grounding feels safe to them. Setting boundaries also liberates you from the emotional roller coaster of their patterns. You no longer react to every moment of distance or detachment because you know your limits. You understand where your responsibility ends and theirs begins. That inner clarity allows you to stay centered even when they pull away. And over time, that steadiness becomes magnetic. When they realize you're not trying to control them, but simply maintaining your peace, they start to see you as a stable force, not a threat. That perception slowly invites them to engage with more consistency. Boundaries command respect because they're born from self-respect. They don't need to be shouted or defended. They're felt. They carry an energy of certainty that says, I'm not here to play small, and I'm not here to chase chaos. I'm here to build connection based on truth. When you hold those boundaries with strength and love, the avoidant learns how to meet you in that same energy. You teach them that love doesn't mean losing yourself, that commitment doesn't mean control, and that respect is the foundation of closeness. And as they begin to experience your boundaries not as rejection but as structure, they start to lean in. Because deep down, Even the most avoidant soul longs for a love that feels both free and safe. Every human being has two fundamental emotional needs, the need for freedom and the need for significance. Avoidants are no different. In fact, these needs often dominate their inner world. They pull away not because they don't care, but because deep inside, they fear that commitment will rob them of freedom. They crave connection, yet they fear losing themselves in it. And at the same time, they want to feel valued, seen, and important, but without feeling trapped. Understanding this paradox is the key to helping them move from avoidance to commitment. You can't make them choose closeness by taking away their freedom. You can only invite them into connection by showing them that love can enhance their freedom while amplifying their significance. When you speak to an avoidance need for freedom, you allow them to breathe. You show them that your love doesn't come with chains, that it's not about ownership but partnership. Freedom doesn't mean disconnection, it means choice. When they sense that you're not trying to control or contain them, they begin to relax in your presence. Love starts to feel expansive, not restrictive. You can say with your energy, you are free to be yourself here. You don't have to shrink and you don't have to hide. That kind of emotional permission dissolves fear. It opens a space where they can explore intimacy without losing individuality. At the same time, you must meet their need for significance. Avoidants often hide behind emotional walls because they don't believe their needs, feelings, or presence will be valued. Deep down, they fear being dismissed or unseen. But when you reflect genuine appreciation, when you notice their efforts, however small, when you validate their emotions without judgment, you help them feel worthy of connection. You show them that they matter not for what they do, but for who they are. That feeling of being valued touches the part of them that's been neglected, and it awakens their desire to give more, to show up more fully. Balancing these two needs, freedom and significance, is where transformation happens. Too much freedom without value creates distance. Too much focus on significance without space creates pressure. But when you offer both, the space to breathe and the assurance of being important, you create emotional harmony. They begin to associate love with empowerment, not entrapment. They realize that commitment doesn't mean losing control. It means gaining a deeper purpose within connection. The most powerful way to meet both needs is through your energy and example. Be free yourself. Live with purpose, passion, and independence. Show them that you don't need them to complete you, but that life becomes richer with mutual commitment. Let your love feel like a choice, not a demand. Because when they feel both free and valued in your presence, their fear of closeness transforms into trust. And from that trust, commitment naturally emerges. Not forced, not coerced, but chosen from the heart. Emotional certainty is the foundation of influence and connection. When you are grounded in your own energy, when you know who you are and what you want, you become a stabilizing force in the life of an avoidant. Avoidants are drawn to freedom because they have learned that emotions are unpredictable and unsafe. They run not just from others, but from the chaos of their own feelings. When you lead with emotional certainty, when your energy communicates calm, purpose, and confidence, you offer them something they've rarely experienced, stability and love. They start to feel that being close to you doesn't mean being consumed, it means being anchored. Emotional certainty is not about suppressing your feelings, it's about mastering them. It's about becoming aware of your triggers and not letting them dictate your behavior. Avoidants test emotional strength unconsciously. They pull away to see if the connection can survive distance, if your energy will remain steady. Most people respond with fear or anxiety, proving to the avoidant that closeness equals pressure. But when you remain centered, when you don't chase, beg, or panic, you show them a new model of connection. Your steadiness tells them you can trust this space. You can trust me. You can trust yourself. That's when transformation begins. Leading with emotional certainty means you take responsibility for your own energy. You don't depend on their mood to define your peace. You don't let their withdrawal shake your worth. Instead, you embody clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you desire, and what kind of love you're building. This level of groundedness is magnetic because it communicates safety without words. Avoidants sense your strength, and that strength becomes the foundation upon which they can relax and open. They begin to associate connection with safety, not threat. At the same time, emotional certainty must be paired with vision. When you have a vision for the kind of relationship you want, one rooted in respect, peace, and growth, you naturally become the leader in emotional tone. You're no longer reacting to fear, you're responding from purpose. That vision gives direction, and direction creates safety. People, even those who fear intimacy, are drawn to those who carry purpose because it gives them something to align with. Your clarity gives their uncertainty structure. Your vision gives their hesitation meaning. When you embody emotional certainty and vision together, your energy becomes like a lighthouse. Steady, bright, unwavering. The avoidant may still test the waves, but they'll always be guided back by your consistency. They'll feel your strength not as dominance, but as reassurance. Over time, your presence becomes their safe harbor, the one place they don't have to hide or pretend. That's how commitment begins to take root, not through pressure or persuasion, but through the quiet power of your emotional stability. Because when love is grounded in certainty, fear loses its grip, and even the most distant heart begins to trust the pull of safety over the instinct to run.